Hello, everyone, and welcome to Drive Revenue Growth Using the Power of Mobile Messaging, presented by Infinite Convergence. I'm Emily Poe, and I'll be moderating this webinar. Our speakers today are Myles Naughton and John Puma. You can read their full bios on the right side of your window. Just a few technical notes before we begin. If you have trouble reading a slide, please hold and drag the right corner of the slide window to enlarge. At the bottom of the console, select the Download Slides button to view a PDF version of the slide deck. We will follow the presentations with a Q&A session. Please submit your questions during or after the presentations using the Q&A box at the right side of your window. Okay, we have a poll to kick things off. What is your main reason for joining the webinar today? My company doesn't use mobile messaging but would like to. My company is interested in mobile messaging use cases. My company is unhappy with our current mobile messaging provider. My organization is investigating mobility features and services. Not applicable. And please submit your answer. Great. Okay, now let's begin. Myles, please go ahead.
Thank you, Emily and Maria. Businesses today use various methods to communicate with their customers and their prospects. We are all looking for the silver bullet to help our business retain and add customers in today's highly competitive marketplace. We all look at snail mail and telephone calls as the most rudimentary forms of communication. Both of these can prove effective, but do take a lot of time, effort, and money to be successful. Phone calls are powerful when the right script is read to the right person at the right time that may be looking for your products and or services. Most businesses take a wide swath approach to make many calls to many people, which typically results in a lower response rate. We also see many businesses sending high-gloss mailings to attract customers to their stores and entice them to make a business decision. Unfortunately, most mailings go into circular files with little results to show. With the onset of the Internet, contacting higher quantities has become easier and easier. Our reach becomes easier as we look at emails and social network sites, which has proven to be a good way to push information out to followers in a cost-effective, wide market manner, as we continue to see click-through pricing decrease as the volumes increase. People communicate through similar means with email, mobile phone communication, and social networks predominantly used throughout the United States. The issue being seen now is there is so much information available to all of us, a message can get blurred in the mix of the large amounts of information in front of most of the people that are out there today, which could result in a devaluing of your message. Mobile messaging is more and more being seen as the best way to leverage that one communication device that people tend to rely on, the mobile phone, smartphone. So if we look at read and redemption rates for the various areas, you can read the numbers on the screen, and as technology has advanced, we've seen the redemption rates continue to grow as technology has become higher. We also see the fact that mobile messaging is becoming a great way to communicate with all of your patrons. The reach of mobile communication we see as almost 100% as you send messages out via mobile messaging. Let's look at some interesting numbers to support that fact. Even though mobile messaging has been around for 20 years, its use in our marketplace is only recently seeing large usage and adoption rates for businesses. As businesses weigh their options on how to effectively use mobile messaging as a communication tool, let's take a look at some interesting statistics here in the United States. Now, each one of these statistics has its own impact and relevance to each of us. We also know that depending on the demographic, these numbers will change significantly. So these are oriented towards the business side of the world, and let's keep that in mind as we look at that. So as we look at mobile messages and how many are actually open to read, statistics prove and support the fact that about 98% of all mobile messages are actually open and read in the United States. and about 90% of those messages are read within 10 minutes. I've actually seen some stats that actually are saying that number on the read rate is higher in less time, as little as 3 minutes. But again, for the purposes of this call, we're going to focus on the business side and say that they'll be read within 10 minutes or less. Also, people in the United States are becoming more and more comfortable receiving coupons and information that give them offers or call to actions via their mobile phone. Approximately 75% of the pollers that we've been in contact with would feel more comfortable and would take action upon something they received through their mobile phone and through mobile messaging versus other mediums. Also, if we look at the average daily use of cell phones, Americans view their cell phones 150 times on average each day. They also send and receive 35 mobile messages on average each day and are 10% more likely to redeem coupons received on their phone. And again, to my point about the demographics, I think any of us who have children could probably point that these numbers are much higher, but for the average business user, these are still pretty strong stats that we can leverage and go by. So the numbers make it very clear that used in the correct manner, mobile messaging is one of the most cost-effective methods to communicate with your patrons. And used wisely, you'll be able to get better adoption rates across all of your different communication mediums. So if we look at some of the various use cases today, paint that through here, we have a couple different examples of use cases for you to consider. So this example talks about a local auto service campaign that wanted to target specifically 18 to 24-year-olds to try to bring them into their service shop to try to drive sales. They sent out approximately 2,000 texts, which were at a very low cost, and their offer was, if you opt in and receive a coupon that we'll send out via MMS, you'll get $10 off your next visit. This campaign drove a 10% take rate, so 200 people actually came in and on average spent $35 per visit. That translated into a revenue generation of $7,000 that they did not have. And again, this is just a small local chain that was looking to drive some revenue through a very simple campaign. Their costs were fairly insignificant to the amount of revenue that they took in, and the 10% take rate that drove the additional revenue was something that they would not have seen had they not run the campaign. The next example is a fairly different use case, which is not on the retail side. It's more on the state government side, where they were running a campaign for helping people to quit smoking. This campaign was targeted towards smokers in a certain demographic. They had not been seeing really the take rates that they wanted to see through the traditional methods that they had been using, so they chose to use text messaging and mobile messaging as a way to get people to at least join the campaign and try to quit smoking. The take rate was phenomenal, and they saw a 200% increase in the program's success. Now, this blew away all the numbers that they had seen before and really drove home the fact that they were able to get more eyeballs and positive actions upon the campaign going through mobile messaging. The third use case that we wanted to show and highlight was identity validation. And this is a typical fraudulent action that could be seen through a credit card company, and they have triggers to actually contact people if they see fraudulent activity on your account. In this particular case, the credit card company has gone to using text messaging and mobile messaging as the predominant way that they're going to contact their patrons when they see fraudulent activity, because what tends to happen when they call, it's from an 800 number or a long code number, and many times people don't pick up. They're looking for a call to action to be fairly immediate so that people will take action and either approve or deny the spend or the charges that were in their account. In this case, the example shows a wireless data session that would be generated through a URL that is texted out to the mobile phone, asking people to go into a secure link, which is encrypted, to go in and answer a security question, and to approve or deny that the charge was actually something that they would like to see go through. At that point, after the session is completed, all of the information is deleted and the wireless data session is terminated. They basically are able to get a much more immediate action taken based upon the information that they have, ensuring that people have the proper ability to approve or deny the spend or the charge that's on their account, and get a much more immediate response to know that, in fact, this was either fraud or it was something that they were going to approve. So if we look at where mobile messaging is today, we'd like to talk a little bit more about maximizing your reach. And if we look at some of the apps that are there and the use of apps, we are very firm believers that this is a great way to reach many of your loyal customers and push information out. The issue that you have with an app versus just using standard mobile messaging is that an app must be downloaded and put on a phone in order for you to reach them. So apps are an easy way for anybody to push information out to all their loyal customers easily and cheaply. So there's a wider addressable market that is missing, though, that is missing your message unless they have the app versus mobile messaging, which is a native app on all smartphones today. So your addressable market size does increase when you compare app usage through an IP push to all the people that just have a regular standard cell phone. So services that provide the ability to leverage both an app and SMS and MMS also will allow you to increase your communication reach and get your message out in a much more timely and cost-effective manner. So if we move on to the ROI of utilizing SMS and MMS versus snail mail. As I mentioned previously, companies still are spending considerable money on snail mail communication. While we agree this traditional method has its merits, let's take a look at a case study that we performed with a client. They are a home improvement, do-it-yourself type of large hardware chain that typically sends glossy mailers related to holiday coupons and sale programs. Even they admitted the majority of their mailers go unused, and many times people walk into their store having forgotten to bring the coupon code. So here's a quick comparison of the 100,000 emailers they would typically do in a medium-sized market in the United States. And so when we looked at the comparison of this with mobile messaging, we looked at the ability to hit more people, make it easier for them to bring a coupon into the store on their phone, which they tend to carry with them at all times, and help people get into the store to drive sales. This became an easy decision on the ROI solution on what they should use going forward. We typically see about a 10 times increase in the comparison going from expected revenue on a snail mail campaign or drive in comparison to mobile messaging. And the use of app and mobile messaging together is a great combination with intelligent routing solutions to push information out and helps you expand your reach. So basically, as we look at the comparison between snail mail and text messaging, mobile messaging, you have the ability to increase significantly your revenue generated while doing it in a very cost-effective fashion. So hopefully all of these use cases are useful for all of you as you listen in and you look at ways to try to maximize your technology spend. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce our Vice President in charge of Product Management, John Puma, to complete our short tour today.
Thank you, Myles. So far, we've discussed some interesting use cases that enterprises are using today, while also discussing some additional use cases that leverage multiple messaging technologies like rich media for images and videos, and of course, text messaging, including two-way interactive type messaging campaigns, two-factor authentication, and IP push messaging technologies for those customers who have an enterprise-specific app on their device. Service providers should provide a feature-rich set of services like these, but also things like Myles covered, like analytics, which help you understand the effectiveness of various campaign techniques or strategies, which in turn can help you improve the effectiveness and return on your campaigns. Another great feature is something that we call intelligent routing, which Myles also just talked about. This was underlying the use case Myles just discussed, where the enterprise is looking to get the biggest reach and the best possible impact with the most effective campaign, ensuring that you can deliver to smartphones with an app and to other customers who do not have an app. Now here's the trick. For those that don't have the app, you want to also make sure you reach them with messages and images and videos, while others are getting text messages. Your service provider should be able to understand which phones or mobile users can receive rich media messages versus those that cannot, and allow you to reach everybody. In this way, you have maximized your reach and maximized your return. Intelligent routing permits this, and at the same time also optimizes the cost to do so. Moving on to one-stop shop now. You really want to find a service provider who can handle all of your enterprise messaging needs. Unfortunately today, some enterprises find themselves having to work with multiple providers in order to get the breadth of reach they need, as well as the breadth of experience they need. Working with a robust service provider can lower your costs too. From time to time, enterprises want to do things that may go beyond the standard services of the service provider. So one who offers customization services is a bonus here as well. Then you have everything you need from one supplier who can offer customized solutions, not only to maybe your own enterprise software, but to the enterprise service itself, to allow you to enable new messaging campaigns that meet your marketing and sales strategies. Providing the enterprise with the ability to control how a service is used is also important. A service provider who gives you the ability to break down analytics is one thing, but one who also allows you to assign different privileges to different people or roles is a must as well. This is the only way the enterprise can effectively control their own cost and how the enterprise service is used. When you have to communicate confidential information, your service provider should provide multiple options for you to reach or to meet your security needs of your communication to your customers. And finally, expertise goes along with every decision, of course. Here, in the case of enterprise messaging, we want to talk about working with someone who has a long track record of delivering messages with reliability. You want to know the message got delivered to the intended recipients, and that those deliveries occurred within a time frame that ensures the message is still valuable to the end user. So with that, we summarized the key characteristics one should look at when considering an enterprise message provider. And we asked the final question here. Shouldn't your organization be using mobile messaging as part of your business strategy today? With that, I'll turn it over to Emily for conclusion.
Great. Thanks so much, John. Now let's move on to the Q&A. We have lots of great questions, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Great. Here's the first question. If the reachability of mobile messaging is so high, why don't we see more companies using this as a form of communication? Not sure who wants to take this.
Yeah, this is Myles. I'll take that. And it's a great question. As we're seeing today, though, actually it is becoming more and more adopted. We're looking at about more than 60% in the United States, where people tend to be a little bit more cautious in using it versus some of the other regions. But the adoption rate is significantly higher, I think, than many people would expect. And I also think that the idea of creating campaigns that deliver this kind of value to their customers is something that people are tending to leverage and putting more value on. the return on their investment, because the cost is so much lower, in return for higher visibility and higher action rates, really are driving the adoption rate much higher, and we're seeing that day to day right now.
Great. Thank you so much, Myles. Now we're going to move on to our second question. Do mobile phone users really want businesses communicating with them using mobile messaging?
Yes, so this is John Puma. I'll take that question. I think the answer is basically yes for most people, and I think that you can see that in the statistics that were shown earlier by Myles. Things like the 3% opt-out rate. Most people who opt in for these things opt into it because the information they desire is relevant to them and they're keenly interested in it. This can also be seen in the 98% read rate, 98% read in under 10 minutes on average. So that means some people are reading it as soon as it comes in, of course, and others are waiting longer. But the key point here is that 98% of these are read on average within 10 minutes of receiving it. You certainly aren't getting that with a slick brochure that comes in the mail. This can also be seen in the 10% action rate, and that's what we're really after, is a effective way of communicating with our customers and clientele that actually generates action. In a survey done by Convergence, even employees indicated that they want their employers to be communicating with them using mobile messaging. And in the retail space or the e-commerce space, this is particularly keen as we see people who opt into a loyalty program. They want to get that message, as I said earlier. They want to know when their brand is going on sale, or even in some cases news about a brand is happening, a new product being launched, or a new service being launched. They have an affinity to the brand, and mobile messaging gives them a way to strengthen that affinity with that brand. So yes, end users do want to hear from businesses via mobile messaging.
Great. Thanks so much, Myles and John. Now our next question coming up is, what is next for mobile messaging technology?
Okay, so I guess I can try to handle that question as well. I think what we find in terms of what's next is really working with enterprises to explore how they would use some more robust technologies to allow them to communicate their messages more effectively. And earlier in the meeting today, we talked about rich media, things like images and videos being a way of reaching out and touching the visual senses of an individual and making more of a bigger impact on the message. We find that these types of technologies or mediums are much more effective ways of getting action and communicating to the customer. Since we are heavily involved in providing the infrastructure to telecom carriers, we also see what's coming down the road from a technology perspective that can be applied to enterprise messaging solutions and new ways of marketing and communicating with customers. For example, things like instant messaging and doing video sharing and things of that sort are things that are just now being deployed by carriers here in the U.S. and around the world. And some of these will have impacts to customers in terms of customer service and the ability to share real time things like documents and user guides or updates to user guides, or just make it easier for customer service to turn around a situation that would otherwise result in a product being returned and keeping that customer happy and preventing that return. So there's many new technologies, broader bandwidth that's becoming available that's going to enable new types of user experiences between the enterprise and their customers that companies like Infinite Convergence can help enterprises understand and leverage so as to keep the engagement more and more interesting with their customers.
Great. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our next question. Just Just waiting for that to come up. There we go. How can universities and non-retail organizations use mobile messaging?
I think I can take that one. I think, and we've had discussions with each one of those areas. I think that universities and any kind of educational institution, they're looking for ways to better communicate and easier communication out to the broader population, the student population, as well as the families of the students. So there's definitely a drive to be able to communicate effectively to the different patrons. I think also to the point earlier about the demographics that we mentioned, the younger generation and the generation that are going into the universities now, their technology prowess and understanding far surpasses what it was even 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And they leverage mobile communication on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. So I think universities specifically are looking for ways to be able to integrate that into their offer and their daily communication method to their students and their student bodies. I think they also are looking for ways to communicate specifically with their alumni, and they've looked at those methods on how would I reach alumni that aren't necessarily in my local area, and it does tend to fall back and default to mobile phones, and they have mobile phones in their database that they can communicate with and send messages to. From a non-retail organization standpoint, again, I can't stress enough the cost effectiveness of mobile messaging and how that would play out as somebody is trying to maximize their spend on communication and where they would spend that money to get the most bang for their buck. And more mobile communication is the method that people are using and have on their person at all times. So you get your best bang for your buck through mobile communication in all the different areas. So we see it as being really the main predominant use of communication or for communication going forward for even the areas outside of retail, as you mentioned here. That's a very good question.
Thank you. We had a lot of great questions today and couldn't get to them all, but we will be getting back to everyone who submitted personally after the webinar. And thank you very much for attending this Fierce Live webinar and submitting so many great questions. I'd like to thank our speakers for participating and Infinite Convergence for presenting today's webinar. This webinar has been recorded. You'll be able to access the recording within 24 hours on the same page you used to register for this event. Thank you again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.